Hi everybody, and welcome to the Inner Peace Workshop. I'm your host, Todd Scholl, and this is episode 1, an introduction to mindfulness. During the next 10 weeks, I'm going to be taking you on a journey where we explore mindfulness and its applications to addressing the stress that educators experience. I taught for over 15 years in public schools here in Horry County, South Carolina, and I experienced stress just like every other teacher does. I tried a lot of tools to manage that stress, and of course some work, like exercise and eating right. Those things certainly helped. But it wasn't until I stumbled upon mindfulness that I really found a great tool to help me reduce the stress that I was experiencing. Now, at first, I heard about mindfulness and the techniques that are used with mindfulness, and I thought, I don't know if that's really for me. But I had an open mind, and I gave it a shot, and I noticed that it worked. And so I've been practicing it for over the past several years, and I've been researching it as well. And I finally decided to create a workshop to just share the things that I've learned about mindfulness with other educators. You can also find out more about mindfulness in education because there's a whole lot of people working on this, researching it and writing about it, and sort of generating a lot of great resources around this topic. And you can find out more about this stuff on the companion website to this series. That can be found at theinnerpeace.weebly.com, and peace in this case is spelled P-I-E-C-E. So on this episode, we're just going to be talking about the stress that teachers face and talking about mindfulness and what it is and how it can be used to address the stress that educators are experiencing. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inner Peace Workshop.
Stressed out at some point this month. How about at some point this week? Or some point today? Chances are, if you're an educator, that you've been stressed out some point recently. And the statistics show that this is true. MetLife did a study looking at teacher frequency of experiencing great stress. And if you look, in 1985, if we combine the blue and yellow sections of the pie chart, 36% of teachers reported having great stress at least several days a week, if not almost every day. If we look at 2012, that number's gone from 36% to 51% of teachers experiencing great stress several days a week or almost every day. When we add that 30% in the purple section, we have 81% of teachers, or about 4 out of every 5 teachers, experiencing great stress at least once or twice a week. The same is true for principals. They also looked at principals and how much they deal with great stress. And if you look at the blue and yellow sections here, 48% of principals experience great stress at least several days a week, and another 37% at least once or twice a week. So our principals and teachers are clearly stressed out. And I believe this is one of the reasons why we have 46% of teachers leaving the profession within the first 5 years. There's a lot of reasons why teachers leave the profession, and some of those things we can't do anything about. If a teacher wants to leave to start a family, there's nothing we can really do about that. But I believe there are some key reasons why teachers leave the profession that we can actually do something about. We can actually make a difference. One of those areas is burnout. A lot of teachers just get burned out by the workload. They're up early every day, working really hard, taking that work home at night, grading papers, and involved with clubs and coaching and other things going on at school, events going on at school, and teachers just get burned out. We also have teachers who are under a lot of pressure because of standardized testing. And we have teachers who are experiencing very poor working conditions, whether it be they're in a school where the administration isn't very supportive, or they have very high class loads. A lot of teachers find themselves in very poor working conditions. We also have the specter of school safety that is certainly stressful to a lot of administrators and teachers. When we saw what happened at Sandy Hook and the tragedy that unfolded there, It made us wonder, is my school really safe? Are my students really going to be safe? And all of these things can sort of be put under the umbrella term of stress. And we know that a stressed out teacher, not only might they leave the profession, but we know the ones that do stay can't perform optimally because they're all stressed out. And they risk transferring that stress to their students. And our students are stressed out too. 21% of children aged 9 to 17 have a diagnosable mental or addictive disorder. In any given year, only 20% of those children with mental disorders are identified and receive mental health services. Less than half of U.S. students on antidepressants receive therapy. More teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. So my question is, what are schools doing about this? We have principals, we have teachers, and we have students who are really stressed out. And so what are they doing? This next slide is going to show you what I've observed. And that's not much. So what can we do? What can we do to reduce stress and improve the mental health of our students and teachers? Well, I believe that mindfulness is part of the answer. But before we move further, I do want to make something clear. I'm not trying to promote or diminish anyone's religious or spiritual beliefs. Mindfulness practice is based in part on meditation techniques with roots in a variety of religious and spiritual traditions. But the mindfulness that I'm presenting here in the Inner Peace Workshop is a secular approach to controlling the mind and reducing stress. So what exactly is mindfulness? Mindfulness is non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. Being here now, being in the moment, without all the thoughts of past or future, being really, really present, and without having to label the experience as good or bad. So, in order to understand mindfulness, we need to understand the mind. So let's talk about the mind for a minute. As teachers, we're taught to be reflective practitioners, and we're also taught to plan ahead. And so our minds are often consumed with thoughts of the past or thoughts of the future. Let's first take a look at thoughts from the past. As you go into your day, you may have had a fight with your spouse in the morning, or you may be thinking about a class that was really awful the day before, or something that a colleague said to you that was really offensive. And then when you go home, you may reflect on the things that happened during the day that didn't go so well. So you hear teachers a lot of times take this work home with them, and they're thinking about it and reflecting on maybe a student who misbehaved or a situation that came up that was really tough and stressful, and they're kind of trying to figure it out, like how can I prevent that from happening tomorrow, or what can I do differently? And so teachers often are spending their evenings thinking about their teaching, and this can often add a layer of stress to the profession. And many teachers have insomnia as a result of just thinking about this stuff so much and not being able to let it go when they leave the school door. We also plan ahead a lot, and so teachers are thinking about the future. What am I going to be doing tomorrow with my students? What's going to be happening down the road, short range and long range plans. You may be thinking during the day about a faculty meeting that you have that afternoon and how it's going to be a long one, or maybe you have a medical issue that you for yourself or for a loved one that you're concerned about and wondering, what's going to happen there? Am I going to be okay, or is my loved one going to be okay? Or you may be hoping that your spouse is going to have flowers for you when you get home because of that fight you had in the morning. But as teachers, we are constantly looking ahead and planning. And while it is often useful to reflect or to plan, sometimes we can get bogged down in past or future thought, especially when we're thinking about negative things from the past or the future, and this adds this additional layer of stress. And another example I will give is you have this whole checklist of things that you need to do. and that checklist is, really, really long, and it seems to, once you get a couple of things done, there's 3 or 4 more things added to it. And you're sitting there thinking, gosh, I've got all these papers to grade. Grades are going to be due coming up soon. And, I've got to get these materials together for this lesson tomorrow. And I still have 5 or 6 things left on my to-do list that I don't think I'm going to have time to get to. And so rather than sort of accepting that, well, I'll do what I can do and I'll do my best, we think about those things and how we're not going to be able to get it all done. And it generates a whole lot of stress that we really don't need to have. And so we can use this as a metaphor, this lake. So this lake right now is choppy. And when we're agitated, our minds are agitated and we're thinking about these things and getting stressed out, we can kind of think of our mind as this lake is very choppy, and we can't see a clear reflection of the sky or the mountains or the trees because our minds are just too agitated. Or because the lake is too agitated, and it's like our minds when it becomes agitated with thought. But when we apply mindfulness and we practice mindfulness on a regular basis, it helps us sort of reset or reboot our brains, our minds, and allows things to settle down. And so this picture, we can see that this lake, it's settled, it's clear, it's like glass, and we can see a clear reflection of the trees, the mountains, and the sky. And so when we can settle our minds down, it helps us see things clearer. And ironically, we think that we have to be so busy and thinking about things all the time, but that actually sometimes ends up preventing us from being as productive as we could be, as creative and as calm as we could be if we only applied some mindfulness to our daily activities. Here's another way to look at it. This glass on the left would represent your mind after a stressful day. We just can't see through. We're just not clear, and you just feel drained and just feel as though you just can't handle much more. And so the stress builds up because we don't have a whole lot of resiliency to the stressful things that are happening in our environments. But if we practice some mindfulness, it can help clear out our minds and make us feel a little bit more at peace and a little bit better able or equipped to handle the things that we have going on in our lives. Now, mindfulness sometimes sounds good, but a lot of people look at it and think, well, yeah, but where's the science behind it? What this thing, that you're talking about, is it really effective? Have there been studies to show that it's really effective? And if so, what do those studies show? Well, there's a whole host of studies that have been done, and if you'd like to read more about the research, you can go to my website, and I'll share this website again with you at the end of the episode, theinnerpeace.weebly.com. And there I have a tab at the top that says research, and you can read all about the research in terms of mindfulness and the impact that it has on the mind and on a whole host of health and mental health and physical health issues. But Sarah Lazar at Harvard Medical School, there's a very interesting video that I have embedded on my website where she actually shows that people who practice mindfulness over a regular period of time, there's actually changes in structure to the brain, that the gray matter actually increases in some areas and decreases in other areas, and very, very interesting research that she's doing, so I highly encourage you to check that out if you're into that kind of thing. But we know that mindfulness, we've shown that it decreases stress, that it reduces symptoms associated with depression, anxiety, pain, and insomnia. Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is one of the pioneers in this field, works with patients who experience chronic pain, and when they practice mindfulness, it really, really helps them manage that pain better. We also know that it enhances our ability to pay attention. Wouldn't that be great for our students to have that skill? And it increases our quality of life. And again, you can find out more about this research on my website. But this week, I want you to really consider this question. Do you control your mind, or does your mind control you? The next time you're in traffic, the next time a student misbehaves, or you're in a long line at Walmart, or something stressful happens to you, catch yourself and see how and observe how you react to that situation, and ask yourself, is this a habit I've formed to react this way and to get angry and to get stressed out, to get worried, to get nervous, to get perseverant thoughts on this particular thing that's happened? Or am I actually in control of my mind, and I can actually respond to things in a really mindful and calm way? I know for me, there are certainly times in my life where I have significant challenges with the reactions that I have to stressful events. And so for me, mindfulness helps me step out of that and put a gap between what occurs that's an event and my response to it. And it helps me respond to it in a calmer way and keep things in perspective. So ask yourself if you control your mind or your mind controls you, because that's going to be an important thing for you to look at. I also want you to examine how much of the time that you go through during the week is given over to thoughts about things that have happened in the past or the future. As you're sitting there in your car, or you're waiting for an appointment, or just kind of relaxing at home, catch yourself in the moment of thinking about something, and then ask yourself, was that something I was thinking about that happened in the past, or was that something that was happening in the future? And then just sort of take mental note of those things over the course of the week.
Well, thanks for watching episode 1 of the Inner Peace Workshop. I hope that you'll consider continuing this journey together as we explore mindfulness in education. There is a handout for each episode, including episode 1, that will contain discussion questions, a journal entry, and your homework for the week. Your homework essentially for this week is just to sort of take note of how your mind works. Do you think a lot about the past or the future, or do you have negative or positive thoughts? And especially take note when you're under stressful conditions. Does your mind control you, or do you control your mind? And I hope that you will join us next week for episode 2, where we will explore a mindfulness practice where we focus on the breath. I invite you to connect with me online on Facebook at Todd Andrew Scholl, on Twitter at Todd Scholl, and you can always email me at toddscholl@gmail.com. And again, the companion website for this workshop is theinnerpeace.weebly.com, and there you're going to find a whole bunch of resources, including videos, the research I mentioned earlier, links, and articles. So please check out the website, theinnerpeace.weebly.com. Well, we'll see you next week for episode 2. Until then, have a mindful week.